Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 106. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. What a glorious day it is, Dave. It is draft day. The Steelers are going to be on the clock here Thursday night, and we might know who they're picking. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but regardless, this is going to be a crazy couple of days.
I feel a draft.
Yeah, close that window.
Yeah, I tell you, it's it's a great day to be alive. Absolutely, this is obviously one of these next few days is obviously one of the busiest ones that weekends that we have on a site outside of started the preseason and started the regular season and all like that. So definitely a busy time here. And look, props to you and all the site contributors. How many profiles did we get up this year?
202.
202. That is outstanding. And name off everybody. Daniel, Nick, Tom, yourself,
Josh Carney,
all those guys did a fantastic job. I think I have, about 15, 18 contextualizations or videos up and all to go along with that. And
which got a really good response. I think people really enjoyed the contextualization.
Yeah, I would try to put those more into video form, but it takes so long just to find the plays and all that to compile them all. But look, we're not done, obviously. I wish there were 2 more weeks for us to look at more tape, but there's not. Now is the time for the draft, and then obviously we're going to immediately change course this evening and get into start breaking down the new Pittsburgh Steelers that are drafted.
But before we do that, let's get to the biggest piece of Steelers news, the thing we do know before tonight's draft, not related to the draft specifically, but Ben Roethlisberger finally signs his contract extension, what officially you call it a 2-year extension that signs him through 2021, probably presumed to be the last contract he'll sign of his career. I know Art Rooney said he's not going to rule out that this is the last contract. Of course, we'll have to see what happens. Dave, I'm sure you have all the details on that. I've kind of just deferred to you on the money aspect of it. Not that I think there's going to be any big gripes about it. I think it was probably about in line with what we expected, but your take on the deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at some of the numbers that I put together ahead of especially not long after Maurkice Pouncey signed. The writing I thought was on the wall. Once you saw Maurkice Pouncey sign a 2-year extension, I had a really good feeling that the extension for Ben Roethlisberger was at most going to be 2 to 3 years at that point, and I really felt strongly that it was going to be a 2-year contract extension. I think if you go back and look at that, some of those numbers, the example that I gave, of course, at the time, I thought the deal obviously would get done before having to pay him the $5 million roster bonus. So I obviously had to increase my signing bonus by $5 million at that time, thinking that was going to get wrapped into things. But I'm pretty proud of myself, Alex. I came pretty damn close to hitting these numbers with Ben Roethlisberger. And we don't have the exact details yet. We don't think. I mean, the way some of these guys report these deals on Twitter, they're doing it wrong. As far as total value and new money and all like that, and that's why it's been kind of jumbled between guys like Rappaport and Jason Lockenfor and Adam Schefter and Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. But it looks like the total value now of this new deal is $85 million when you combine new money and old money. Now, Roethlisberger was due $17 million already in 2019. So if you take that $17 million and you subtract it from 85, you get what? $68 million? Is that right?
What was it? 85 and what?
85 minus 17.
68.
All right, so $68 million. So if indeed, and then $5 million, of course, was of that was, depends on what do you want to do with that $5 million. I mean, I've got it counted as old money there, but if it is indeed $68 million, in new money, well then that's a $34 million average of the two new, when you divide it by 2 for the 2-year extension. So $34 million will put him right there, right at almost with Russell Wilson there. So he got according to reports, he got a $37.5 million signing bonus. He got a $2.5 million base salary in 2019, according to the early reports. Now, people need to keep in mind, you still had the $5 million roster bonus that stays in 2019. Also, the $6.2 million, the previous proration left over from his old deal, stays in 2019 too. And that's why I cautioned everybody throughout this process. Roethlisberger's cap number probably not going to go down. I projected at the time, I think my firm projection was that his cap number would stay the same, but that, of course, was with assuming that the $5 million roster bonus would have been rolled into the new signing bonus there. Well, that obviously didn't happen, so it looks like his new cap charge, if all these figures are right, for 2019 is going to be $26.2 million. And if that is indeed the case, well, his cap charge increased this year by $2 million.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, look, if you thought Ben, there's a lot of people saying, well, Ben should have gave a hometown discount and, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And, if only, if the Steelers would have been able to get Ben done ahead of his roster bonus being due in mid-March there, maybe they could have got him for a little bit cheaper there. But once Russell Wilson signed that mega deal that he did, all bets were off at that time. So I'm not surprised. It came in obviously a little bit higher average per year than what I anticipated. I think I had been maybe at 31.5 or 32 million new money average, and he comes in right at, it looks like, 34 million per year there. So will this be the last contract that Ben Roethlisberger signs of his NFL career? One would think so, but don't want to speak in absolutes, and I know Art Rooney II didn't want to speak in absolutes when he talked about Bob Labriola yesterday. Obviously, he'll be on into his 40s, and one would think that these final 3 seasons will be it for Ben.
Yep, it'll take him to his age 39 season, but maybe he's good enough for a 40th. We'll have to see how the world looks then. Is there any, if you had to point to any singular reason or try to, is there any, what would you say was the reason why this deal took a little bit longer than anticipated? I was always confident it was going to get done. I wasn't sure quite when, but we kind of thought it was going to happen before the bonus kicked in. You think it was Ben's camp just waiting out for, like you said, Russell Wilson's deal, these other quarterbacks that come in that would help kind of seal the deal for Ben to get what he wanted, or you think it was just the process of trying to work out a long-term deal with the quarterback, which naturally takes some time?
Yes.
All right.
Really, I don't know what took so long. You could say that Ben all along wanted to make sure he was paid at least higher than, wanted to be, paid higher than Rodgers, and then by how much? Maybe he knew that, maybe his side knew that the Russell Wilson deal was in the works and was likely to get done. And especially, I don't know, when did Russell Wilson didn't put that deadline out until after the start of the new year, I don't think. But
internally, though, they may have known. Agents talk. Who knows how that conversation goes. Possibly. I would just be guesstimating there. I wouldn't know for sure there. But
I don't know. It got past the start of the new year, though. I said that meter's running. You had Russell Wilson. At some point, you got to think Drew Brees is going to get something. Not Drew Brees. Phillip Rivers is going to get something done here as well too. So I'm glad they got it done before the draft. I'm glad it's done. I think all sides are glad to have it done now. It's good to have it done before the start of the off-season program, and also Ben's not having to worry anything about that. The process of that either. So signed, sealed, and delivered. It's done. His cap hits, it looked like in 2020 is going to be $33.5 million, and in 2021, $31.5 million. When you look at the guarantees and the injury guarantees and all like that, basically, really essentially the first 2 years, 2019, 2020. if need be, or Ben needs to walk away after 2020, or if the Steelers, who knows what's going to happen there. I mean, if a decline happens or anything like that, they would be on the hook for, it looks like, $12.5 million in potential dead money in 2021. Can't believe we're having a good discussion about potentially cutting Ben Roethlisberger in 2021, but that's the long and short of it. 2021 would probably be the magic year. One thing that we don't know, the exact base salary and maybe roster bonus layout. I think, according to reports, he's going to get $21 million overall in 2020. We don't know how much of that is base salary and how much of that is maybe a roster bonus. That could be due at the the start of the new league year next year. Just in the same, we don't know what the exact layout, the split between the $19 million it looks like he's going to be scheduled to earn in 2021. How much of that's going to be base and how much of that's going to be roster bonus. I wouldn't think a roster bonus in any one of those 2 years would be more than, say, $6 or $7 million at the max there. So with the contract coming in now, we should have all the final details in, I would think, by maybe Tuesday at the latest. But the way the reports have been coming in so far, it's been kind of a little bit easier to decipher it.
And to reiterate, you said don't expect really any sort of cap change for year one in terms of what Ben's going to count against the cap, right?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to go up $2 million.
Oh, it's going to go up $2 million.
Right.
Okay.
He was scheduled to make, I think, to count $24.2 million against the cap prior to this deal in 2019. If all these early numbers are correct, it looks like his cap charge is going to be $26.2 million. So that's going to eat in $2 more million into the cap. Now, going into yesterday, the Steelers had a little over $6.2 million in salary cap space. They obviously are going to use up a little less than, it looks like, $3 million. A little less than $3 million in cap space to get, all the draft picks signed and all the undrafted free agents signed and all like that. So if you subtract, let's go ahead and round it up to $3 million, and then Ben's $2 million, that's $5 million. That leaves you with $1.2 million in salary cap space. Now, obviously there are going to be moves made, from here on out, potential cap cuts that are going to free up some cap space as well, too. And generally, the Steelers will probably want to go into this season with around $5 million in cap space available for in-season injuries and whatnot. So there's going to be some meat on the bone that needs to be taken care of here.
Yeah, but we'll get to that later in the offseason whenever it is time to do that. All right, Dave, let's transition now to the draft because, it is a big event.
I need to towel myself all off. You got me talking about the cap and contracts and stuff like that. I might need a shower.
I had to pull you back here, otherwise we'd have the 3-hour podcast today.
Yeah, you get a 3-hour.
With no draft talk.
Right, 3-hour contract break discussion and CBA and salary cap discussion there.
Yeah, but it's seriously so valuable information because this stuff goes over my head. I don't know the CBA in and out. I don't know really the CBA too well at all. So it's important to have that perspective to give us that information, as you said. You call it, 2-year extension. And that makes a lot of sense in hindsight for Ben and that Ben and Pouncey connection. But let's transition to the draft now because the Steelers will be on the clock at number 20. We presume, not discounting possibility of a trade up or the slight possibility of a trade down. I don't know where you want to start here, Dave. We can talk about who's rumored. There's certainly one name that's become the name to attach to the Pittsburgh Steelers, or we can talk about your mock draft. You tell me here, now that you're toweled off, which direction you want to go.
Yeah, boy, have you... maybe we just get forgetful this time of year. I can't remember, I don't know if you'd really want to call him a dark horse. I mean, Rock Ya-Sin out of Temple is a guy. It seems like there was some buzz going on about Rock Ya-Sin around the Senior Bowl time with the Steelers. Obviously, I think there was a shot or two on the TV of maybe Tomlin hamming it up a little bit, maybe with David Seals and Rock Ya-Sin and all, and maybe there's a report at the time that the Steelers seemed really interested in Rock Ya-Sin. I forget back that far already as far as that goes, but then we went through kind of a real lull with Rock Ya-Sin. I mean, I know we've talked about him on the podcast and kind of just quickly kind of shake our head like we don't see it when it comes to Rock Ya-Sin. I know he's kind of hovered around probably most analysts' top 50 throughout this process here, but and maybe he's even shown up in a few of these other mock drafts from the Draftniks throughout the process too, occasionally in the first round. But really, since the Senior Bowl, there hasn't been a lot of I guess, buzz. It's been more about, Devin Bush maybe or Greedy, and then we went through an early DeAndre Baker phase of him showing up in the mocks with the Steelers there. Obviously, Brian Murphy was a real hot name for a little bit, and then Greedy, and then those are about the names I think there. Then lo and behold, this past week, Peter King, Albert Breer, both mocked Rock Ya-Sin to the Steelers in their one and only, I think, mock drafts of the year. And our buddy Dave T. Thomas came right on out and said in his podcast, Scout's Honor, that he pointed at the fence and said this is going to be the pick right here when it comes to Rock Ya-Sin. And then since then, I think Daniel Jeremiah on his final mock draft, that was really maybe all these guys look at each other and want to stay in line with each other. I don't know how much they maybe hear. Keeping their ear down to the ground, but Daniel Jeremiah had Rock Ya-Sin to the Steelers as well. So I don't remember a time where maybe major media guys came together on, I guess I really shouldn't call it a dark horse pick, but kind of a late name into the ring, I guess.
Really, any selection they've had, Steelers generally keep things close to the vest. We don't often know which direction they were going to go. There aren't a lot of leaks. Now, there was Artie Burns a couple years ago. Who's that? Was that Peter King? Someone had, or was that Peter King that had Artie Burns?
No, Charlie Casserly.
That was a Casserly. Yeah, Casserly had Burns, which kind of maybe felt like some inside information. But yeah, the big thing for me is our buddy Dave T. Thomas. And it didn't sound like at least a guess from his part. It sounded like well-sourced information that he said on his podcast, Scout's Honor. Let me give you the quote of what Dave T. said the other day, and really since then it's been flooded with nothing but Rock Ya-Sin to Pittsburgh. But Dave T. said, quote, he's definitely going to end up in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform unless somebody else jumps ahead. But the Murphy, the Greedy Williams, and everything, they're taking a back seat right now. The first cornerback off the board is going to be Rock Ya. And then Crane, his co-host, followed up and said, is that what you're saying? Is Rock Ya-Sin going to become a Pittsburgh Steeler? And Dave T. says, quote, yeah, it's almost etched in stone right now. That will be their left cornerback next year. So that's as strong a statement as you're going to hear. And, maybe we'll hold back a little bit to wait for the pick to come in. Never know what's going to happen on draft day. But as you and I have talked about, I don't think that he's at the reach in the way that Artie was or the way that Terrell Edmunds was perceived. But you and I both have discussed that we don't view him as the top cornerback and not a first-round talent.
Correct. And we love Dave T, and we'll have him on until we can't have him on no more. But we don't always, we come away sometimes with our interview, and you actually have to listen to it twice, 3 times maybe, even to grab everything that he says. I mean, he has called a lot of shots, and did he indeed call the shot of the deal of Seattle and Kansas City? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I'll say this. He called Rashawn Gary having that shoulder issue about 2 days before the national media jumped on it. So he knows his stuff. He's getting good information.
All right, I can't remember. Somebody tweeted at me and said, well, he called the and maybe it was on one of his own podcasts. He called Frank, what's his last name?
Frank Clark.
Frank Clark, Seattle to Kansas City deal as well too. Look, Dave T is connected. He's got some connections, obviously. But we do shake. I mean, it doesn't prevent us sometimes when he talked. He talked about the Steelers needing a tackle and all like that.
Sure.
You and I shaking our heads on there. We don't agree with everything Dave T says, obviously, but I mean, there's some reason all of our listeners want him on year in and year out, and I want him on. I think you want him on as well too. I mean, the guy can drop knowledge on any player that you give him, even guys that you don't name properly, like I did with the LSU guard. Once you give him a name, he's like, "Give me a name, guys," and once you do, he drops a bit of knowledge on him, So, all right, let's talk a little bit about Rock Ya-Sin. I went back, and I think you did too, with all this buzz on Rock Ya-Sin, and watched a little bit more tape on him. He's a good cornerback, Alex. I mean, I don't want to take anything. Now, obviously, look, here's the thing, folks. There's not a lot of Presbyterian tape running around.
I found one game, I think, Wake Forest last year.
Other than that, how much of the Presbyterian tape do you really want to use? To how good, considering the competition and all this, obviously he's a guy that had no business playing in that low of school, I don't think. And
right.
Now when you fast forward to his tape with Temple, his one season at Temple, I mean, he's got some good tape there as a press man corner, and really as a zone corner as well too there, but. I'm not seeing. Maybe you can help me out here. What am I missing?
Here's why I believe scouts in the league loves Rock Ya-Sin. They love his toughness. They love his background. They love his attitude. They love his competitiveness. He's a wrestling champion, or he wrestled in high school. And you see that on tape. Sometimes the way he tackles, he should get 2 points for tape.
Yeah. Look, he can tackle. No, and I think he missed maybe 3 tackles all last season.
Wow, yeah, and in my initial scouting report of him that I wrote, that'll get bumped up if Ya-Sin is the pick. I think I was a little more critical of his tackling and stuff than maybe where I'm at now. And I don't think it's a toughness issue. I don't think it's a competitive issue. I think he was just having a hard time to work off some of the blocks in the tape that I saw. But yeah, they love that wrestling background. They love the toughness. I mean, he wore number 6 at Temple, and people that know Temple know that they give single digits to the players deemed the toughest guys in that locker room. It's a really honor to wear a single digit. Tyler Medikevich wore a single digit. He wore number 8 for the Owls, several years ago, and he did that only as a 1-year guy. I mean, that tells you that he came in and made a big impression on that group right away. He got that number in 8 months. So I think people love that story and that competitiveness with him. He was a no-star recruit coming out. He was choosing between Presbyterian and Tennessee State. So, this is a guy that's very much self-made, and I think they like that. I think they generally are good enough with the athleticism, but it's that background, it's that character, it's that just chip on your shoulder that I think has teams in love with Rock Ya-Sin.
I'm trying to pull up some of the other stats that I have here from Sports Info Solutions that I put in at Jeremiah mock draft on his targets here. Let's see. According to the stats compiled by Sports Info Solutions, Ya-Sin was targeted 61 times in coverage during the 2018 season, and he allowed 32 of those passes to be completed for 232 yards and a touchdown. The same outlet has Ya-Sin playing some form of man coverage 72.5% of the time last year at Temple, and zone coverage 27.5% of the time. I think that matches what we see on tape, right? I mean, he's mostly in some sort of a man or pattern matching kind of scheme, correct?
Yeah, he did play a mix. He's played some cover 3, some zone coverage, but yeah, man has been the dominant. Press man, the left cornerback spot is where he's often aligned. But he's got the versatility and the comfort to play in multiple schemes and coverages.
And in fact, he played. They have him down for 18.6% of the time he lined up in the slot. So he does have a little bit of slot ability as well too. Now, when you look, and I hate to get into this late in the process, doing a little bit of stat sheet scouting, but when you're trying to go back through a player real quick and review his tape late in the process, again, I did watch it. I tell you what 2 games that I don't have access to that I wish I did, that I like to see was his games against Houston late in the season and the game against Eastern Carolina. You can't find either. At least I can't find. I don't know if you've come across either one of those two games or cut-ups even.
I might have the Houston game for you. I'll have to go back and check.
All right, I'd like to see that because he did have a couple pass breakups in that game there. Now, in total, he only had. He did have a lot of interceptions. How many interceptions did he have at Presbyterian?
5 in 2017. That was a school record.
He had 5. Yeah, he had 5. Now he had, if I'm
in that year, he had 2017. I think he had 5.
Right, and he had 18 passes defensed. I think that year. Now the 2 years prior to that, he didn't have any. Right? Is that what you're showing?
I'm going off the top of my head. I don't know if he had any or not. I'm not sure how much he was starting or playing either, so I can look it up, though.
All right. Now, obviously, you get to Temple. He only had 2 interceptions at Temple. I think he did – I think there was the one against Buffalo that initially was ruled an interception and then got overturned, so maybe consider that a dropped interception. And maybe there was one other – I can't remember if I saw another drop interception in there or not. But, 2 interceptions is 2 interceptions at FBS level. And we hear Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert talk all the time about, or at least recently this offseason, we want people that have done it. Well, how much stock do you put into 5? Obviously, I've not seen the 5 interceptions at Presbyterian. But how much stock do you put in that? On top of that, who would you say was the best wide receiver that Rock Ya-Sin went up against at Temple? Was it the Buffalo Kid Johnson?
I have to look at the schedule, but I think Anthony Johnson would be a contender. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was an elite guy. I don't know if I can look at Temple's schedule. But
does Maryland have any?
Not seniors, maybe an underclassman I'm unaware of.
And I know Houston doesn't have anybody, right?
Yeah, again, unless there's an underclassman that I just don't know about. But in terms of seniors, no. I think Anthony Johnson's probably your top guy.
What about UCF?
Same thing. Let me look at. They play any big schools?
They played Houston and they played Houston and Maryland. UCF obviously ranked, but no big names there.
Boston College has not a big name receiver, but they got a couple speedsters. Maybe there was someone against Boston College I would check out. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Probably either one of the Boston College guys or definitely Anthony Johnson from Buffalo would be his toughest competition because he did not play in the bowl game against Duke. Not that Duke has any top talent at receiver. They got Daniel Jones, but he sat out the Independence Bowl. And
you look at his passes defense. One thing that stuck out to me when kind of going back through his passes defense, here. And look, I mean, you obviously can't read a lot into this, but it was enough that it caught my attention. 3rd and 10. All right. Well, generally, what needs to happen on a 3rd and 10 situation? You need
defense
time.
Get off the field. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I mean, you generally need some time, and usually the quarterback's throwing the ball, or you would hope down near the chains, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's a little bit obviously long situations are slanted for the defense, or should be.
Yeah.
Okay. 3rd and 10. He had a pass breakup against Buffalo. 3rd and 12. He had a pass breakup against Buffalo. I think that might have been. I can't remember if that was the one that got ruled a drop or not there on his part. 2nd and 13 against Maryland. Oh, here's something for you. The official stats and really across all platforms, I think, have him as 2 pass breakups in the game against Maryland. One of them wasn't him, folks. The ball was thrown to the other side of the field on a 4th and 12 there, and they evidently got the number wrong. So they gave of his 14 credited pass breakups, it's 13. 2nd and 13 against Maryland, pass breakup. 3rd and 13 against Eastern Carolina. 2nd and 9 against Eastern Carolina. 2nd and 20 against Eastern Carolina. 2nd and 10 versus Navy, and the other 2 are more in line with regular kind of down and distance there. Now I don't want to take anything away from a guy from making a pass breakup on a 3rd and long situation or 2nd and long, but I thought that was something interesting that stuck out to me as well. Here's another thing. Now, obviously, cornerbacks are not going to have a lot of tackles for losses. He was credited with 2 last year at Temple. One of those was a flat-out gift in the game against Central Florida. The running back was running to that side of the field and just chose to run out of bounds instead of getting contact. At worst, the running back should have been stopped for no gain or maybe a 1-yard gain. Now, obviously, Yasin coming at you. Look, I would have ran out of bounds probably myself there, but there was no tackle involved there. Now, here we are. We're I went back and watched a couple of full games last night. Scurried through them real quickly. Like I said, I don't know. I'm just missing it here with him. I think he's a good corner. I view him more as a second or third round corner, and that's it.
Yeah, I think his ceiling's a number 2. I think it's actually kind of a similar profile to, say, Steven Nelson. Overall, I don't see a number 1 guy. But again, I do want to kind of, I'm going to go through some more games, and if he's the pick, then we're going to really talk about him in depth. But you guys know our thoughts on Yasin, and we're not going to change our opinion and evaluation on a player just because he might become a Pittsburgh Steeler. That's not what we do here. And so we're just going to tell you what we think.
Right, but what we did do is try to open our minds back up and go back into the tape.
Oh, I've been researching everything about Yasin. I'm watching Presbyterian versus Wake Forest, for God's sakes. No, that's not my plan.
Right. Now, look, here's another thing. How many quote-unquote trends would a selection of Rock Ya-Sin break?
It breaks my heart.
I mean, yeah, and on top of that, I mean, non-Power 5, right?
Yep, first time it'd be since 2004.
All right. No Colbert at his pro day.
First time since 2009.
A senior, which isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's happened before. But first since Bud, if you want to talk about last time it happened, Bud was the last senior.
He's going to be, I think, if the number's correct, he's going to be 23 in a month from now.
I don't know what the age trend is.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
it's been a while, I think, since they had a first-round draft pick that old.
Okay.
What else? What other things? I mean, not a super sparky guy.
Yeah, he tested okay. I think you look at his relative athletic score, the RAS stat, that's really helpful. He was pretty average. The speed is okay. He ran about 4.51. I still see a little bit of tightness. Going back through the tape, seeing some of the All-22, I think he looks a little more fluid and less stiff than I thought. But I look at his 3-cone time, and I was a little worried about that. Some of the change of direction stuff was slightly concerning. He tested. He had a good vert.
Yeah, I mean, he had good jumps. He had a good vert. He had a 10-foot broad jump, which is fine. But, I mean, look at his short shuttle and his 3-cone. Yeah. I mean, if all we were given that with the prospect, we'd wonder what we're dealing with there. I know you shouldn't scout that way, but unfortunately, that's the truth of the matter. That we have to essentially kind of scout backwards here on our end of things because we don't follow these teams all throughout the college football year that closely or individuals that closely. So we start and then the combine boom and then we're trying to match combine numbers up to what we saw on tape and all like that. So typically the way we scout, if we were just handed that 4.31. If we were handed just his 40 time, his short shuttle, and his 3-cone time, and know nothing else, we wouldn't have him in the first round probably.
No, we wouldn't. So he tested okay. Nothing that's going to blow you away though.
Well, I mean, was he a captain? I mean, I know he had that low Temple number, which means a lot to the Steelers. There. I don't think he was a team captain, was he?
I'm not seeing it in my notes. I don't know about Temple. I know he was at least a couple games, like that Wake Forest game in 2017, a team captain at Presbyterian. So I don't know how teams do it, if they do it game by game or for the year. But I know at least in some capacity, either at Temple or Presbyterian, he's been named team captain for at least a game.
All right, now they did bring him in. Now he was a Senior Bowl. He was at the Senior Bowl, so he's got that going for him. There and look, he by most reports he had a great Senior Bowl, and obviously with a guy coming out of a school like Temple that really didn't play a lot of top competition, when you get a guy like that at the Senior Bowl, get some of the top competition, you would expect him to perform well, and he evidently did. So I mean. But to me, boy, Alex, to me, this just seems like one heck of a kind of a projection to make with, to me, it looks like a little bit of a reach.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think he's viewed as a late first, early two. I don't think he's the reach in the way that Burns and Edmonds were projected, where they were solid second round picks. And as I said before, Dave, this cornerback class is so jumbled up. There is no clear cut guy. You're gonna have names all over the board, and that can make things sound surprising just because you heard about the big names, and all of a sudden this other guy comes in with Rocky Sin. But there is no consensus top quarterbacks. Boards are going to be vastly different, and the league just in general sounds high on the guy. And a lot of it, I think, is because of that story and his toughness and the edge that he plays with. But yeah, I just worry about. I know he played a lot of man coverage at Temple, but I just worry about him thriving in a man heavy scheme where he's not a tremendous athlete. And that's my concern. I think he has good ball skills. I think he plays the ball well in the air. I know the interception numbers aren't gaudy, but I think he does a nice job tracking it. But I just worry about that overall athletic profile.
And where did Mel Kiper have him in his final 300? Not that it matters.
38. Yeah, I've compiled a list of most the big names, and most people have you seen in their overall rankings somewhere 30 plus. I think the highest is 29 that I've seen.
And I think Gil Brandt. Where did Gil Brandt have Matt? Do you know?
The 38 as well, with as same as Mel.
Oh,
yeah,
really? The two had him at the same place there.
Yep. Daniel Jeremiah has him at 30. CBS Sports at 46. NFL Draft Scout at 36. Draft Countdown is the highest I've seen at 29 overall.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll see, right? We don't want to get too in depth because he's not the pick yet, but
right.
He sure is the hot commodity right now.
Mm-hmm. And just to be clear, I don't hate the pick. I like Rocky Sin. I wrote that in my report. I've said this before. There are things I like about Rocky Sin, and some of the things I was initially negative on in that initial scouting report that I did back in February, and things changed the more that you're learning about these guys. I don't think we even had combine numbers in yet. There are things to like. I just don't see number one top corner, and I would in that first round pick, I want someone with that high ceiling.
Yeah, me as well too. But I mean, we could be talking. Look, at least it's an easy name for me to spell and say.
Yeah, that's the one nice thing.
Yeah, I mean we got that going for us maybe. All right. Enough rocking our listeners here.
Well, let's throw out some other names for first round. Then we'll talk about your mock to kind of get later in the show here. But if it's not Rocky Sin, let's say he's off the board hypothetically, or the reports are wrong. We don't generally see this much smoke for Pittsburgh. Maybe it's all a big misinformation. Who else do you have in mind as your top guys if it's not Rocky Sin?
Well, here's the thing. Even hours before the draft getting underway here, if a guy like Devin Bush makes it out of the top 10 or 11, I think there's a possibility that he could fall all the way down to 20, or if he gets in kind of that 15 rank, 5 to 6 spots away, I don't think you can rule out the possibility of the Steelers going up and getting him. Now, everybody's going to say he's not going to make it past Cincinnati. He's not going to make it past Denver, Cincinnati, or Green Bay. And I get that. I totally get that. But stranger things have happened before, and I think if he makes it past 11 or 12, I think it's game on at that point. Because I don't think the teams after him need, unless they have him, unless they draft like the Steelers and don't go, and just go best player available, I think he could fall. I mean, if he make it to somewhere around 15 in the Redskins, would the Redskins take maybe a third and a fifth from the Steelers for them to go up and get him? I think it's possible. So I'm going to go down dying on the hill here, thinking that I don't think it's out of the question totally. I mean, obviously the odds are against it, but that Devin Bush could be the guy. Now, outside of Devin Bush, let's go through the names here. If Clelin Ferrell makes it past a team like maybe Carolina, where I think he's a good fit for, and Bush is not on the board or whoever, I think there's a good shot. Probably not as much ceiling left with Ferrell at this point. I mean, I think maybe what you see is maybe what you get with him. But you want to talk about a crystal clean prospect other than the turf toe? I think he's a name that could be considered. A lot of people have thrown out Brian Burns. His tape is impressive. I don't know that the Steelers have shown a lot of interest in him though, right?
Yeah, there's been minimal, no pro day, no visit. That takes him off the board for me.
Obviously, T.J. Hawkinson should he fall man, you'd have to strongly consider him, right?
Yeah, you would. But again, I'm not expecting him to
Right.
fall.
I'm not.
I
I'm
think
not
Green Bay is his floor.
I'm not expecting him to fall either here. Going down the names here, Greedy. I mean, obviously, look. I mean, you made. I think based on, and Kevin Colbert gives us a little bit of hints. You know, whether or not we choose to ignore them throughout the process here. I thought you did the best job of laying out from one single quote, why Greedy could potentially be the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it made sense. And it's funny to hear that quote and then hear about them taking the best tackling corner if they take Rock Ya-Sin, who does have some ball skills, but it made me laugh. But it felt like they were going to change and maybe not now.
We would go from, Alex, that was a great call on that quote, boy, he snowballed you.
Yeah, right. He's playing the long game here.
But, I mean, Greedy. I mean, I like Greedy. I mean, I obviously don't know as much about his character as others of some of the stuff, and we kind of talked a little bit about that on the last, on several podcasts, I think, over the pre-draft process too. Byron Murphy. I mean, like it or not, you got to include him in the mix. I'm obviously not as high on him as most, just from the aspect that he only played in 20 games and he didn't play a lot of, man in the process and all like that. But I mean, he checks all the other boxes outside of having Mike Tomlin, Kevin Colbert at his pro day. I mean, that's really technically, I guess, the only that and games played, probably the only things that are kind of unchecked boxes with him. Obviously, we talked about Rock Ya-Sin. At him possibly being the pick. Who else? I mean, Darnell Savage.
Yeah, there's Darnell Savage, for sure. Let me ask you this, Dave. Do you know who you like more between Byron Murphy and Rock Ya-Sin? Do you have a one ahead of the other? I know you're not crazy about either, but if you had to pick one.
Yeah, I knew you was going to ask me something like that.
Here's my thing. Well, I'll vamp. I'll let you think it over. If the Steelers want to try to thread this needle by getting the ball skill corner with also kind of the old school principles of good tackler, run supporter, and all that, why not take Byron Murphy? Because I think he's Rock Ya-Sin, but I think with probably better ball skills, more twitched up, a little more versatile, and maybe even a better athlete. I know they tested the same, but I think on tape they're kind of different athletic guys. Like, why not go Byron Murphy over Rock Ya-Sin? If you don't want to go Greedy because you're worried about the frame and the tackling, whatever, fine. But why not take Byron over Rock Ya-Sin?
Yeah, I mean, I could go that way. You got me coming just right off of Rock Ya-Sin tape. So
yeah, you're riding that high.
Right. So I mean, even though I'm not overly huge on him as a first round draft pick, I mean he's the last guy. I mean, look, he's got some good tape. I don't want to take anything away from Rock Ya-Sin. He's a tackler. He's a hitter. But I mean, I just don't view him as that first round cornerback. When you think of. And there's a little bit of bias there. I admit when you go back and you think of all the, great first round cornerbacks over the years, I don't try to match them. I don't match them up that way. And really, excuse me, Byron Murphy, I don't either there. To be quite honest, I see Byron Murphy as more of a top of the second round guy as well too. But I think push come to shove, I'd probably take Murphy over Rock Ya-Sin.
Okay, so those are the big names, and to go back to Devin Bush, because if you're dead set against Rock Ya-Sin, and what you probably have to hope for as a Steelers fan is that Devin Bush falls, and the way that Devin Bush falls is probably if Devin White falls. So if Devin White gets past 5 at Tampa, that's where he's most popularly mocked. But if he gets past there because Tampa does whatever, D tackle falls, Ed Oliver, Quentin Williams, something happens, then that might push White down, and that could push Devin Bush down. And so I think, as you said, Dave, if he gets past 11 with Cincinnati, as I said before, that's a choke point. If he gets past that, then the Steelers could be in position to trade up. And there's a report from Tom Pelissero from NFL Network, I believe, that says Miami is one of the teams showing the most interest in trading back. So if you go up to 13 with Miami to get Devin Bush, that's a possibility. But he's got to fall. He's got to get past 11 for this to happen.
Rashawn Gary, I mean, is he a name we should be talking about here?
No, I wouldn't. No tape and injury concerns.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Any of the wide receivers, Metcalf, Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, Yeah, no one that fits well enough. I mean, second round, you're talking receiver potentially, but not at 20.
A.J. Brown's the of all the guys that kind of have had a first round tag on him as far as the wide receiver goes. I mean, A.J. Brown and Deebo Samuel. I don't think there's been a lot of talk on him in the first round. I think Deebo Samuel's a guy both of us like.
Mm-hmm. Watch out for Bill Belichick at 32. He could be Deebo Samuel.
N'Keal Harry is more now finally I think widely considered more of a second round guy, so I think that would be a surprise there. I mean, who else are we missing here? Who else are we going to be kicking ourselves and say why didn't we talk about that guy as potentially being the pick?
I think that's the list. I think everything points to cornerback, even if the national media guys that aren't saying Rock Ya-Sin, or even the local guys. I think Jerry Dulac said Byron Murphy, and that surprised me to some extent, because I thought after the Steven Nelson signing they were going to push cornerback down, but this team's all in on getting the secondary fixed, and so it's going to be. It sounds like if it's not Devin Bush, who I still believe is the number one guy, but if they can't get him, which is very possible, then they're going to go corner, and it's going to be your pick of who, like I said before, who your favorite corner is.
All right, Justin Lane. Well, I mean, there's no way that he's going to be the first rounder, right?
Yeah, I think we can kind of get rid of the Julian Loves and the Lanes and the Tilleries and focus on the big names.
And the Winoviches?
Yeah, 52 for Winovich. Could totally see it. 20 though, not happening.
All right. I mean, I think that's the name. We hope we have the right name, Darnell Savage, right? I mean, it is, and it's going to be a good segue here. And yep. I guess let's just jump right into my final mock here now. With a lot of you guys going chalk this year and beating me to the altar with the mock drafts, I got to admit I wanted to try to. Look, I always want to try to be right. That's why I do this rightest thing, because Lord knows I hate being wrong on some things here. But on the flip side, I wanted to do a little bit different, but there's been this late push for Savage is kind of the other guy with the Steelers, although his time frame was real short in there because here comes Rock Ya-Sin to push him out of the talk there. I think after going back and watching more, boy, I'm in bad shape this morning throat wise here. I apologize, folks. When you look at his tape, when you look at his measurables, when you look at everything, character, everything concerning Darnell Savage, he is a hard player not to like. And if there was going to be a quote-unquote another reach, and Lord knows the Steelers have been more than willing to take a player more regarded as a top 50 to 100 player as their first-round draft pick, more so than a national media draft nick's top 50 player. It's the Steelers. Mm-hmm. So when I at somewhere in this or at the beginning, I said there's been a lot of buzz this past week about Savage ultimately going in the first round, despite many draft nicks having him more as a third-round selection. So consider this pick me taking the late media bait, if you will. We talked a little bit on the last podcast. I started drawing you all the. Now look, you could probably, if you tried hard enough, you could connect enough dots and put your tinfoil hat on. But I thought I made a strong argument as to maybe why Colbert and Tomlin were not at his pro day. Correct?
Yeah, I think it makes total sense.
For those that missed that episode, because the league meetings were going on at that time, and there was absolutely no way Tomlin was going to make that pro day, and then Colbert, of course, being on the other end of the country, on top of it too, just made it so tough, and of course he made the Texas tour at that time as well too. So I think I've skirted away there around that. Yeah, he's a senior. But, I mean, if they're going to draft any senior in the first round, it's got to be a senior that went to the Senior Bowl, and he did do that.
Mm-hmm. And he's young.
He's young, and that was my next thing is, okay, well, Dave, what about his age? Well, he won't turn 22 until late July, so he's still it's almost like having a little bit of an younger underclassman there. He's an experienced guy. I drew the connection with Tomlin in Maryland because his son Dino and Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator there. He's a sparky dude at 128.2. He was an experienced playing in what did I say? Is he the 44 for 44 guy?
46 total games, 37 starts.
Okay, so he's got the experience there. He's a team captain there. He's not afraid to hit. Not ideal measurements, but I mean, he's no shorty either. At 5'10", 6, almost 5'11", 198 pounds. He played a lot in the box at Maryland. He played early in his Maryland career at corner. He played some in the slot. He is a very athletic, jack of all trade, Swiss Army knife defensive player, and as far as I can tell, an impeccable character too. So, how much of a reach was this for me? Mock me.
No, I don't think it was much of a reach at all. I think you're looking at somebody that, like Edmonds last year. Edmonds caught the very late buzz, super, super late in the process. And so I have, in my 7-round mock draft one up today, I think I had Savage at 35 or 36. I think 36 it was. So, and he's someone that could go higher. He could be a late first-round pick. So I don't think it's a reach. I think it made a ton of sense. I personally would take Darnell Savage over, Rock Ya-Sin, for example. I'm a big fan of Savage. And the other thing is he took the ball away, too. He had 7 interceptions the last 2 years. So he's been able to be a playmaker. And just to go with this dot connecting, because you had me thinking, you blew my mind, Dave, with the Matt Canada talk, who was the offensive coordinator at Pitt, and there's a relationship with Tomlin and Canada there. Matt Canada got hired in 2011 to be the offensive coordinator at Northern Illinois. Then he went to Wisconsin in 2012 and was at NC State from 2013 to 2015. You know what other person was at Northern Illinois in 2011, Wisconsin in 2012, and North Carolina State from 2013 to 2015? You know, Dave?
No.
Eddie Faulkner, the new Steelers running back coach, followed Canada to every one of those places until Canada finally, I think, got a job at LSU. So there's a relationship there, which just going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Look, I mean, would you be mad if what do you think the overall reaction would be if he is the pick?
If Savage is the pick?
Yeah, would it be another reach?
Maybe, because I feel like people don't know a ton about Darnell Savage because he's come on so late in this process. But I don't know. I think people will look at his tape and see the highlight reel and be really excited about that. So I think people would like it. But, there's always going to be backlash to any pick the Steelers make.
Let me ask you, how could – look, he's – whatever team is going to get him is going to get a good special teams player to start with, or they should. And how can he get on the field for the Steelers during his rookie season?
Oh, easily. That dime backer spot's wide open. I mean, who's the dime defender today? You asked this question to me last time. I mean, right now it's probably Marcus Allen, and I'm not really comfortable with that. So that's an easy, probably at least 500 snaps right there without even considering for an injury with how much this team plays dime, assuming Savage can pick up the playbook. So the snaps are there for the taking. I think, to me, it's easier to find a path for Savage to get on the field than it is for one of these corners to get on the field.
I agree. And, Sean Davis is in the final year of his deal. There's been no signs that they're going to extend him. So he could be out the door, after this year as well, too. So then you're left with Terrell Edmonds. Go back in your head for me and remember back to Terrell Edmonds' college tape and Savage in his college tape. Who would you rather if you had both of them were in the same draft class and coming out and knowing what you knew or now know about both players and all of Savage and Edmonds, who would you take?
I think I'd take Savage.
I think I would too, Alex. I mean, look, I wanted to try. I hate mock drafts. I came close to having my wife go buy a in the mock draft season cake yesterday, and I don't know why, but I spend hours upon hours putting my final mock draft together, and I change it in the middle of it like 5 times. I try to build the perfect mock draft for everybody to read, like I'm going to get some sort of a award for it, or something. But look, I mean, I think you can make a strong argument for a guy. And look, if you can get this guy in the second round, all the better. There's no way he makes it past the Steelers in the second round, right?
No, but I think he's a top 40 guy. I think if you want him in round 2, you're trading up for him. I'm looking Oakland 35 as a spot that I might move up towards if I want Darnell Savage.
Now, are you showing Darnell Savage that much attention if you don't think he's a legitimate target? I mean, were there enough questions that they had to get answered about him? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that to me, and I kind of kidded about that on the last podcast. I mean, what did they do at that pre-draft, his pre-draft visit? Just stare at him.
Well, I'm not sure how much they talked to him. I mean, obviously probably at the combine, definitely at the Senior Bowl, and I think they just probably were really impressed by his pro day, Brandon Hunt being there. In the same way that Brandon Hunt was at Temple's pro day with Rocky Sin. We didn't mention that I finally took like two hours.
That was a great find. Boy, some of the finds you have had has been spectacular.
I'm literally going frame by frame.
I know how hard it is. I've done it. I know. Kudos to you.
I was on like Temple News, like the local news station for Temple, trying to find pro day information. But it was Brandon Hunt, the Steelers pro scouting coordinator, which I would consider a long-time high-ranking official, and he was at Temple and he was at Maryland, and I think he's telling Kevin Colbert, like, you got to bring these guys in. These guys are talented. These are guys we have to consider and learn more about to potentially be the pick. So that's the reason why I think Savage came in, because they just didn't have a chance to talk to him really face to face. And because I think if you're drafting him, if you're Colbert, for even the second round guys, you got to talk to these guys face to face. Tomlin and Colbert have to have a lengthy conversation with those picks to really feel comfortable with them. And so I think that's the reason why Savage came in. But yeah, if you get him in the second round, even by trading up for him, I'd love it. If you can go Rocky Sin at 20 and then Darnell Savage trading up in the second round, cool with me.
All right, so if when Darnell Savage goes in the third round, you're not gonna mock me too bad, are you?
No, because I had Justin Reed in the first round last year and he won the third, so that's the draft for you.
All right, my other obvious, the other four guys I listed: Devin Bush, Cleveland Farrell, Greedy Williams, and Byron Murphy, of guys who I think could be the pick in the second round. I don't know. Did I surprise you here? Julian Love, Notre Dame.
A little, but I like it. I think his name. We haven't talked about some of those secondary corner options too much, and maybe that won't end up being too relevant if they take Rocky Center or corner at a 20. But yeah, Julian Love and Justin Lane and Amani from Penn State, those are things we probably have to at least throw out there more than we have. So I'm glad you have Love here at 52.
I think he's one of those guys in the second round that the Steelers want to go corner. That could be the guy. And look, he ended up playing a little bit more man coverage, I think, than what I initially thought he did. And he lined up in the slot, I think, at least last year, about 25% at a time. In fact, Sports Info Solutions has, Alex, take care of your eyes.
My eyes are already bad, so
my mama and my grandma warned me to eat my carrots, man, because let me tell you, the last about 3 years, man, my eyes have just gotten awful. Your health update is provided by...
Please check your local insurance provider. Thank you for choosing Steelers Depot.
Now that I have my eye...
You have that appendectomy that you have scheduled at 7 p.m. tonight, right?
Golly. Lord, Alex, you just don't know. Mania bipolar and all these sleep disorder and all. It's a wonder. It's a wonder I don't end the day not kicking the chair out. 65.8% man coverage in 2018. 34.2% zone, some sort of zone coverage in 2018. Lined up in the slot 25% of the time at Notre Dame. When I went through those numbers a little bit, went back into the tape. That surprised me because I think my initial run throughs, I kind of viewed him. Maybe I caught a game where they played a little bit more zone or whatnot. You want to talk about incredible character? This kid's got it. They were at his pro day. Colbert was at his pro day, and also Terrell Austin was at his pro day. I think Austin actually was the one that put him through his DB drills. Mm-hmm. He put up a very respectable combine, I think. And at his pro day, he even reran his 40 and ran it. You could get into whole hand time versus electronic time, whatnot. But he did attempt to run it again and ran 4.45. He can make plays on the football as well too, and he had. He was among the FBS leaders in passes defense each of the last 2 seasons, breaking the school record with 44 for his career. So around the football, intercepted 5 passes, had 176 total tackles and forced 1 fumble at Notre Dame. I think regardless of whatever, obviously if they take a cornerback in the first round, they're probably not going to take a cornerback in the second round. But if the Steelers do not go corner in the first round, I think Love or Lane, Lover's Lane, Love Lane could potentially be the guy.
Yeah, it sounds like regardless they're not getting out of day 2 without a cornerback, right? Worst case.
Yeah,
They don't take 1 or 20.
I would think in the first 3 rounds, right?
Yeah. So those are some great names to throw out there. Yeah, Love would be a really good pick. But
I forgot to mention Sean Bunting is another name. Maybe second's too strong for him. Maybe he's more a third, but I think he's a name. In fact, the names I considered when my second round pick were Chase Winovich, Justin Lane, Sean Bunting, and N'Keal Harry if they decided to go with a wide receiver in the second round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all good. Winovich, I think, is certainly on their radar. I think Harry said he's not getting past Arizona at 33. I know that's the player saying that, but I don't think he's going to be on the board. Bunting would be a good name. I think 52-66 would be the prime spot for Sean Bunting.
All right, cue up the Notre Dame fight song, Alex. We're continuing on, and I don't know. Did you watch me put this mock together? Tell the truth.
I did. I peeked at the Christmas presents, Dave, because I know you had a certain Charles Omenihu sitting with, and I watched you change it back.
You caught me, didn't you?
I caught you. Yeah.
Did you see David Sills in there?
I saw David Sills. Yeah, I was refreshing. I wanted to take a little peek at what Dave Bryan was doing. I saw Omenihu and Bandigu, and then you were like, I know I have 4 defensive players here. I know
You're
you thought
exactly
about that
right.
statement and went, I can't do that. Alex is going to yell at you.
You caught me, and you got me right along the line.
Yes, I did.
Line of thinking as well too. I wish there was a way I could block you out. I need to put the whole damn thing together on WordPress. I mean, in Word, and then put it in the WordPress. I knew you were going to catch me there. Like I said, I try to put the perfect and moving pieces of the puzzle around here. Yeah, I was strongly considering Charles Omenihu here. I was trying to work him into this mock and all, but I turned around and I had 4 defensive players in the first 4 picks, and I said I can't do that, and all like that. And I was trying to think, how can I rework this and make it believable where Omenihu might go? Because look, if there's one guy that's been all over the board, it's Omenihu, right?
Yeah, I have no idea where Charles Omenihu is going to go. And that's why we should bring up our mock draft contest. I forgot about that because that is our contest on Steelers Depot where you put 50 players down, talk about your best guesses of who's going to become a Pittsburgh Steeler. And one of our tiebreaker question is what pick is Charles Omenihu going to get taken by? Because I don't know what it's going to be.
Right, and this is a guy that showed up at the combine at 280, showed up at his pro day at like 264 or 260.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So he's going outside linebacker then.
Well, he's trying. He's evidently he showed up at he wants to show his. I guess teams don't know what to do with him. I don't know
what to do with him.
280 at the combine, like 264, 265 at his pro day.
Wow.
So what is he? I mean,
well, that makes him in his Steelers skin. That makes him an outside linebacker.
Right, but I mean. Where I think, looking at his tape and looking about what I think should be done with him, and the way I think the Steelers should look at him, is I think you bump it. I think he's got the frame to do it, right? I mean, go up to 290, 300.
Well, that was the question. He's at 280. So do you go down 20 or do you go up 20? And I think for him, he should, and I think he's doing the right thing. I think he should go down because I think it's easier to drop that weight than to add it.
Well, I think with his frame, I think it's easier for him to bulk up. Personally, I mean, I don't know anything about nutrition and all like that. I'm not going to pretend to, but I view him as being a very good 3-4-5 technique that can rush the passer if he bulks up. But you see, you're opposite. You say get down to 264 and be an edge, or be an outside linebacker maybe. I mean, because he showed some athleticism on tape.
Yeah, I think I just think it's easier to go down than to go up, and I think 280. I think trying to add 20 pounds. Steelers have never drafted a defensive lineman lighter than 286 under the Mike Tomlin era, and I think just trying to go up that extra weight is going to be too difficult. That's my opinion. Bud was heavy and dropped. Not as heavy, but dropped weight.
And then you have Chiclo too that we talked about there. How tall is Omenihu?
He's tall. He's like 6'5". I mean, he's got the height and the length that's attractive to play defensive line. And then again, the schemes get blurred. You can move these guys around. You're not confined to one spot. But to try to become, to play defensive line, that means you're playing a lot of 3-tech, even 1-tech. And I think it barely 280 to try to go up. It probably wasn't going to work as well. I think he'd be an edge guy.
I mean, this is a guy, too, that might fit in a 4-3, right?
Yeah. 3-4 outside linebacker, 4-3 end would be his projection than trying to be this too big defensive lineman that still doesn't fit great along the interior.
So you think it's a stretch by me to get him to go up to 298, 302 and become a 3-4-5 tech defensive end?
Yeah, I'd go the other direction. I'd drop weight like he is and play the edge.
Okay. Well, maybe the Steelers will draft him as an edge then. But anyway, I tried to. I just don't. I'm so confused about what he is. I'm interested to see how it's going to play out for him. And then I got to admit, I had David Seals from West Virginia as my wide receiver way on down, I think in round 5 there. And then I tore up the paper, and then I said, well, who's going to be the wide receiver in round 3? And I didn't want to go with, a lot of you guys had Miles Boykin, but Miles Boykin makes the most sense other than him being just a one-year producer. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. He checks all the other boxes there. And also, it gave me the ability to have, look, I got 2 Notre Dame players in there. Kevin Cole was at the Notre Dame Pro Day. I'm going to get one of these right, damn it, this year. But, in all seriousness, Miles Boykin, for what the Steelers are looking for in an X receiver, checks all the boxes and would be a pretty fine get, I think, in round 3. Really, might as well call it the end of round 2.
Yep, it's the second pick of the 3rd round. Steelers have done a really nice job of picking high in these rounds. I think in the 5th round they have the second pick, and so they've done a good job of picking high at these spots. But yeah, I think most of us at Depot have Boykin as a Steeler receiver, so that makes as much sense as anybody.
I tried to die on the hill with Seals. I just couldn't. Look, I'm not going to be. Look, if you wait, and need a receiver, I do believe that they like him. So there you go. The other players I considered in this round: Jermaine Pratt, Blake Cashman, Josh Oliver, the tight end, and Renell Marin, a guy that we really haven't talked a lot about since the Senior Bowl, an athletic guy that could be a 3-4-5 technique with the Steelers there. I finally had to get me an outside linebacker with the second of 2 third-round picks. I went Ben Banigou, a little bit older guy out of TCU, but you want to talk about another guy that you just envisioned the Steelers liking? It's him. Go back and watch his interview after his pro day. And, boy, you want to talk about a player breaking down his putting together his contextualization tape. I really enjoyed doing that. I learned a lot about him and what he can do, and he can do a lot. Now, like I said, he is a tad bit older there, but maybe if you're looking kind of for that segue from Bud Dupree to, and look, make no mistake about it, I think Banigou potentially could be a starter in the NFL, but I think he's got a lot of things to work on. Counters back to the outside. I think he's a better pass rusher more to the inside than he is to the outside. He can definitely run stunts and everything along like that. 33 5/8-inch arms, Alex. Those are some arms you can really do something with there as a pass rusher there. Really like Ben Banigou. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's a good pick. Explosive edge rusher, Senior Bowl guy that I thought impressed down in Mobile. Doesn't have to play right away. You're looking at potential replacement for Dupree in 2020. Has some similar traits. Again, just that really good get off, and maybe the bend's a bit of a concern. The 3-cone time was solid though. 702, 250s is strong. Yeah, it's a good pick. I can't fight you on it.
I think he's got better bend coming out of college than Dupree did. Be quite honest with you.
Oh, I agree. And the 3 cones reflect that.
All right, round 4, I had to finally get an inside linebacker. Hey, Ben Burke-Kirven kind of matched what the Steelers look for. He's kind of one of those guys. Is he just a 2-downer? Can he stay on the field on 3rd down? Definitely put up probably a little bit better measurables at the combine than most people thought. Registered an FBS best, 176 tackles in 2018, the most by a Washington defensive player since 1987. He's not yet 22 years old. Had a P-Spark score of 132.7. He was. We talk about the All-Star games being important with these guys. At least he wasn't at the Senior Bowl, but he was an East-West Shrine Game participant there. He finished his college career with 338 total tackles. How many did Matakevich have? Almost 500.
It was a lot. It was. I can look at the number, but it was a million tackles.
11 and a half of those resulted in lost yards. He had 4 sacks. He had look. You want to talk about a guy for a guy that played off the ball? He was able to take the football away. 6 forced fumbles and 4 interceptions. Find me an inside linebacker, off the ball inside linebacker that had 10 takeaways like that during his college career. 16 passes defensed on top of it. He should be a core special teams player during his rookie season, and then you kind of go from there. The Steelers had him in for a pre-draft visit.
This is my dude. I love Ben Burke-Irvin. I don't think I saw a linebacker that disengaged and defeated blocks better than Ben Burke-Irvin. Everybody talks about that great defensive line that Washington had with Greg Gaines in the middle, but you don't make that many tackles without working off blocks, and he did. And so this is a guy that I think is athletic, can cover, can make plays. Taylor Rapp should give him some of his rookie check because Burke-Irvin, I think, had a couple deflections that resulted in picks for Taylor Rapp to make those stats look good. Now, the question is, and it's a valid point, why did he have so many tackles but only 11 and a half tackles for loss? Why wasn't he making plays in the backfield? That's a valid question, and that's something that you have to explore. But I think overall his tape's really strong, and yes, he's undersized, but most of the linebackers these days are quote-unquote undersized. Most of the linebackers the Steelers have shown interest in are on the small side, so that does not worry me. And Matakevich, by the way, had 493 tackles in his career.
Look, I mean, if we want to ding Devin Bush about not showing up in the stat sheet with tackles for losses, then sure, it's a valid argument.
Yep, it's good. Good point.
Now, however, if you take away Bush's sacks from his tackles for losses, you get a very minuscule number, right? Ben Burke-Irvin had 4. I mean, you basically have 8.5 tackles for losses that were not sacks for Ben Burke-Irvin. There, he's not David Long Jr. out of neither one of them are the stat tackle for loss guy that David Long Jr. was at West Virginia. I think Burke-Irvin is a much better tackler than Long, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so I mean, if you wait, if you can get Ben Burke-Irvin in the 4th, I wouldn't be angry. Who would you rather have, Ben Burke-Irvin or Mack Wilson?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm a big Ben Burke-Irvin fan, so I might lean him, but there's a value too. Mack Wilson's going to probably cost you 52. Burke-Irvin might be 4th or 5th round guy. So probably in value and talent, I think I would go with Burke-Irvin.
All right. The other guys I consider with that pick, David Long Jr., Justice Hill, Tevon Coney, and Vosine Joseph, a couple of other inside linebackers there because I waited so long. Just to round out, to jump up real quick, the other picks I considered, instead of Ben Banigou in the second, third round pick, Charles Omenihu, Darrell Henderson, the running back out of Memphis. If he's still on the board there, that might be tough for the Steelers to, with Randy Fichtner knowing what goes on in Memphis. Darrell Henderson might be a guy hard to turn your head against, right?
Yeah, it feels like they're going to draft a Memphis guy. You got Henderson, you got Pollard, you got Tate, the offensive lineman. I could see a Tiger becoming a Steeler.
And DeAndre Walker, the edge rusher out of Georgia, and Jordan Brailford, the edge rusher out of Oklahoma State, also had his potential third-round picks should they not go the direction with Banigou. Look, my fifth-round pick needs no introduction. The only question was where is he going to go? Where do you put him in a mock draft? Is he a fourth-round pick? Is he a fifth-round pick? Is he a sixth-round pick? We're going to find out. But if there's one single player, it's been easy to connect the Steelers potentially having an interest in this whole offseason. It has to be Foster Moreau. We've talked a ton about him. Are you surprised he showed up in my final mock?
No, not at all. Maybe that's a little bit lower than what I thought, but I think you make a good point that maybe some of the athletic testing doesn't show up always on tape, and with how deep this tight end class, it might be one of those deep tight end classes of the last 10, 20 years that could push a guy like Moreau down. So I had him in the 4th round. You have him in the 5th round. It's a 20-pick difference. I'm not going to fight you on that.
I think he is a classic, really good guy to have as a number 2. Obviously, I don't think I'd want him as my number 1.
Yeah, he's Jesse James 2.0.
All right, so Jesse James went in the 5th. That's how I ride kind of there. Other guys I considered: Ben Powers, the offensive lineman; David Sills, the 5th, obviously wide receiver out of West Virginia; Ross Pierschbacher out of Alabama is an interesting guy. Can play center, play some center and guard there. I think becomes attractive in the 5th round. And Elise Mack, it's kind of a reach, but I needed a kind of guy to consider in there. Another Notre Dame player, guy that's had a few issues, at Notre Dame there. I put him in there.
Is Perschbacher the dude with like 57 career starts? It's one of them I looked up. One of those interior linemen. It was insane.
He had quite a few.
And it was mostly at, I think, guard. He kicked the center late. But I think he's the one with 57, which is just insane to even amass it, play in that number of games, let alone have that many starts. I think it's the most starts. I think it tied the school record with like their kicker or something. But
58 games played, 57 games started.
Wow, and the Steelers usually take at least one guy with an insane amount of starting experience in each draft. So if you want an interior guy, that's a good name to throw out there.
Now he is almost 24, so there is that. But Okay, moving forward from Foster Moreau, Isaiah Buggs is a guy that I think we're not talking enough about. Now, ideal measurables, probably not. But because he's a little bit shorter at 6'3" and 1/8, Steelers had a large contingent again at the Alabama Pro Day. He was only a 2-year player, I think, at Alabama because he was a transfer. He was a transfer guy. But boy, he is hard to miss on tape. When you go through it. And quite honestly, maybe 6 rounds too late for him. Maybe he's a guy that you're going to have to get in maybe the 4th or 5th round. But he is a guy, I think, Alex, that's versatile enough to play over the nose, 0 through 5. He can play it technique-wise. And he was a productive at Alabama. Kind of you want to talk about a Swiss Army knife in defensive lineman that fits what the Steelers do. I think he's it.
Here's my concern with Isaiah Buggs, is that arm length. 31.25-inch arms. That does not feel like a Steelers defensive lineman unless maybe an interior, like nose tackle guy, but I don't know. I get what you're saying. I like the flexibility. You got the Dunbar connection. That lack of length, though, would be surprising to see them take.
Sure, and that's another reason why I think he falls a little bit later here.
All right. Where do you want to play him? How's he going to win? I have some issues.
Can he be your backup nose tackle or defensive tackle, backup in kind of a rotational? Use him as a pass rusher later in games to relieve somebody. I think he can be that guy. I don't think he's starter material by no stretch of imagination. But if you're looking for another backup to have later in the draft, kind of a la. I think he's a better prospect than Josh Frazier was coming out.
Yeah, that's definitely easily. And to be fair, it is hard to find a late round defensive lineman that fits this team in terms of the size and the athleticism and the production. There aren't many that fit this team right now.
Alex, what did you think about when you were peeking at my mock draft in round 6? Did you see me change my mind all those times?
I think I was there when I saw Barnes already there. 207 surprised me. We'll get to that in a second. But tell me about Alex Barnes.
Alex Barnes out of Kansas State was a guy that when you put together what the Steelers most look for when it comes to running backs, he was the one in the crosshairs there. Now, I flipped back and forth between him and Benny Snell. I wanted to take your guy, and I said, I better not take Alex's guy. So I flip-flopped back and forth there. But, Alex Barnes fits, right? 6 foot, 226 pounds. In fact, I put in here, in lieu of going with the running back that Alex Kozora has been married to throughout the pre-draft process, Kentucky's Benny Snell Jr., I'm going to go with Barnes, the running back that best matches what the Steelers normally look for in his recent study of the position as far as measurables go. He was a 2-year starter at Kansas State. He led the Big 12 in rushing in 2018 with a little over 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns on 256 carries. He also caught 20 passes for 194 yards in 2018. And overall, from what I said, and look, I didn't spend nearly enough time on the running backs this year. He looked to be okay in pass protection to me. During his college career at Kansas State, Barnes had 28 rushes, Here's one thing that caught my eye with him too. Barnes had 28 rushes that produced at least 20 yards or more, and 78 of those resulted in gains of 10 yards. So he's not just 4 yards in a cloud of dust kind of guy. He also played some on special teams. That's going to be another attractive feature for him as a potential Steelers running back. And he played in 36 total games at Kansas State, of which he started 25 of them.
Yeah, it's a really good name. It's good to kind of throw out those, names that aren't the most obvious, not just a list of pre-draft visitors, to go with somebody a little bit different. And there aren't a lot of huge backs, 225 plus in this class, but Barnes is one of them with, like you said, good production, explosive plays. He hit everything this team looks for. So had I not fallen for Benny Snell, I probably would have had Alex Barnes in my mock too.
The thing with him, deeper I got into his tape, and I started wondering, man, and looking more at his measurables and all, I don't know if you can get him in the 6th round. He might end up being kind of I don't know. To me, it wouldn't surprise me anywhere late 4th round on into 6 for Alex Barnes. Continue on to my second pick in the 6th round. Halate, boy, I hope the Steelers don't draft him.
That's why I can't believe you put him in your mock, because you knew you had to say it later.
Froholt.
Say Froholt.
Sounds like a guy out of Lord of the Rings or something like that. All they did was walk. For 3 days, they walked and walked and walked. They walked so much the trees started to walk. Have you ever seen Clerks?
Yeah, God, that was on like Comedy Central. Yeah, Clerks, and Clerks 2. Yeah, that was good. Kevin Smith.
Right? I can't believe we watched the same movie. The whole thing where he walks in there and they get into the Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings conversation. That's got to be one of the best, one of the funniest movie scenes there.
It was supposed to be my day off, Dave.
Okay. All right. Froholt is a versatile offensive lineman who participated in the NFLPA Bowl for starters, so he's got that going for him. Originally from Denmark, he mostly played left guard at Arkansas, but was forced to play some at center due to injuries. According to his bio and according to Pro Football Focus, he ended his collegiate career with almost 2,500 snaps on the offensive line, with nearly 1,300 of them in pass protection, allowing just 3 sacks, all coming in 2016. Now, he's got some shorter arms. We might have to call him Froholt Rex. 31 and a quarter inch arms. That's going to be a huge knock on him. But he'll likely be, and that's probably one of the main reasons he'll likely slip into the later rounds of this draft. He showed he could play some center. He'll need to get much stronger at the NFL level. Might need to be a practice squad player with the hopes of developing into a backup. Plus, I know we have some Denmark listeners on the podcast, so I wanted to endear myself. And without breaking any of the Steelers' rules, I wanted to endear myself to them, Alex. So, and I think that pleased a lot of people, listeners of the podcast, me putting him in there late in my mock draft.
You got Isaiah Buggs, you got Froholt, you got a bunch of T-Rexes coming down Steelers roster right now, Dave. I don't know about that.
Funny to watch those guys have a boxing match against each other, right? But look, I mean, you get late in the draft, you get what you get,
Sure.
right? I mean, they're all going to have knocks on him. By the way, guys, I considered instead of Alex Barnes, Benny Snell Jr., Tony Pollard, a guy I've linked to the Steelers for quite a while, Mike Weaver out of Ohio State, Alex Bars, a kid and a lineman, a very good lineman out of Notre Dame. I think he missed a lot of the 2018 season with an injury. I think he's going way under the radar here.
Fractured ankle. This dude's legit. Had he played this year, he'd have been a mid-round pick at worst.
Boy, keep an eye out, folks, on Alex Bars. Alex and I haven't talked about him I don't think, during this podcast. But, boy, you want to talk about maybe getting a late steal of a guy in a draft? Alex Bars is it out of Notre Dame. Keep an eye on him. Right, Alex?
Yeah, he's versatile. I had him in one of my mock drafts, not my last one, but I think my next to last one. He's played guard, he's played tackle, a little bit on the tall side, but got good coaching. Yeah, Bars, and he's apparently ahead of schedule in his road to recovery too. So I think he could be available year one.
Right, boy. Even if you had to practice squat him or whatever, or PUP
well worth it.
Or PUP him. Man, I would do it if you can get him late. I would look. I'd spend how high would you take Bars? 5th round? Is that where he goes?
It's hard hard to say. I think teams will be encouraged by his recovery. I depends on what happened to combine rechecks. I assume he went back. I'd probably go as high as 175, my first 6-round pick with him.
All right, well, look. I would not hate him at all if they went that way. I was late getting to his tape and his story, but really a good kid. Michael Jackson Sr., Chris Boyd, Dylan Mitchell, little Jordan Humphrey, who ain't so little, were other guys I considered in that 6-round pick. And to close out I didn't know what way to go here, and it got late, and my wife was just yelling at me. I had to get some sleep and this, that, and the other. Matt Gay, I defaulted. I went with Matt Gay, the kicker out of Utah.
Yeah, well, we've talked about him endlessly. I think he's in a lot of our mock drafts. To me, probably the best kicker in this class, and someone with a cool story. Big leg, kicked in bad weather. Hard to fight that one.
All right, what do you think, top to bottom?
It was good. I liked that it was a little different. I like that you didn't go 4 straight defensive players. How many pre-draft visitors did you have? I know I'm a stickler for too many pre-draft visitors. I think you were pretty good.
Savage.
Boykin. Banogu, Curvin,
3, 4.
Moreau, 5.
Did I go 5? Yeah, I was a little bit heavy there.
Well, to be fair, it has happened. I think Justin Brown's class was that 2013. There were 5, but 5 was the absolute max. I think I had 4 because I didn't want to go past 4 pre-draft visitors, but 4 to 5 is fine.
I think I have a chance of maybe hitting 2 names on here, maybe. And look, I have 50 names technically in total on this list. I mean, can I get 4 or 5 right, you think, of the 50 names that I have on this list?
How many did you have last year, if you include the others considered?
Yeah, I don't even remember. It probably wasn't spectacular, or else I'd be letting you know about it.
Fair enough.
All right. Which direction now? Off it goes into the wind. I spend way too much time on those things.
People love them, Dave. You know that. They're all happy to talk about it. Really, we talked about any draft day trades. I mean, the odds they trade up for Devin Bush, if you had to put a number to it, do you think it really happens? Do you think there's a good chance, relatively speaking, that they do make a move?
If he can make it past that 10-11, or whatever, the 10-11-12 or 9-10-11, whatever it is. I mean, if he makes it past there, I think he has to get to at least 15. Let me put it to you that way.
I'll see if he gets to 13.
I'll go on record and say no way they trade up as high as 7 spots. I just think it'd be way too expensive. But okay. I will say 15 to 16. If Bush falls to 15 to 16, I could see them. I don't think they're coming off a 2nd-round pick. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So you have to get in range where maybe a 3rd and a 5th would do it. And I think Bush falling to 15 to 16 would get in that range. So, yeah, I mean, 7% chance. I don't know. But I mean, I look, like I said earlier in this show, I'm going to die on the hill that's saying that it's not impossible, being that if he just makes it, like you said, if White makes it past Tampa Bay, then it could be on.
It could be, but I still think the value is going to be so high with Bush that someone's going to have him graded enough, and any team's going to want a linebacker like him that it's really difficult to see him get to 20. My trade scenarios, 13 Miami, 16 Carolina. Those are the spots I don't think 15 is going to work, because Dan Snyder's going to do crazy stuff in this draft. But 13 Miami, Carolina at 16, those are the 2 likely, quote-unquote, likely spots I think that they could trade up.
What do you think what does it tell you should Bush fall to 15 and beyond? Do we read anything Look, I'm the classic overthinker. I like to think, well, what does it mean if this happens? I'm kind of analytical in that aspect there. But what should we read into teams passing on Bush through, let's say, the first 14 picks, if anything?
In this scenario, does Devin White go at 5, or does he slip 2?
No, he's going in the top. Let's say he goes 5 to Tampa Bay.
Okay. Well, my question is,
but look, it is plausible. I mean, it is plausible for whatever reason for White to slip past Tampa Bay. Now,
Yeah.
it's totally implausible for White to make it out of the top 10. I think we both agree there now.
Sure. My point was that if White slips, and I can understand Bush slipping because everyone gets pushed down a little bit. Denver might take White at 10, and that pushes maybe Bush down a little bit. Now, if White stays at 5 and Bush goes past Denver and Cincinnati, it's a little different story. But
all right, so let me go with that. Go with White going at 5, and then Bush falling out of the top 12. Bush making it to 15 at least. What does it? What do you take from that?
Well, I think the obvious, there's concerns about the size, and there's concerns about the lack of production. It also could be just a matter of what if Denver and Cincy goes quarterback? What if they're going heavy with the franchise guy? So it depends on how the board falls. But the issues with Bush are pretty obvious. Again, lack of size, lack of production. That would be the reason why he falls.
Okay. All right.
Do you agree? I mean, is there something?
Yeah, I but look, if he's top 10, then he's top 10, and I guess the only other way is if a quarterback plays into it, like you said there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't expect Bush to get past 11. If he does, then as you said, it's on. I still don't see him going to 20, but I think that puts the Steelers in play to trade up.
All right.
Let's get to, I think, probably some reader emails because we're at about closing on an hour and a half on this thing, and I know we want to talk to some reader emails here.
All right, let me. We got a lot of. Tell people about the contest and how exactly it works.
Yeah, you can see the post on Steelers Depot. Let me pull up the exact rules because you do want to make sure you read all the rules because Dave's gonna have to go through a lot of this information here. He's gonna do all the work pretty much, and you want to make sure you help him out as much as possible. But basically, we're doing a little different version of the mock draft contest this year just to help us out a little bit because in the past it took so much time and there was so much to wade through that it was tough to do. But basically, for the mock draft contest this year, we just want you to list 50 players and the college that they played for that you think the Steelers will draft this year. Give me your best guess. If you had to put a list of 50 names and saying all the Steelers draft picks will come from this list, don't duplicate players, but just list 50 names. Then that whoever gets the most out of that group will be your winner. There's a tiebreaker too in case there's a tie. You want to list the pick that Charles Omenihu, the DN outside linebacker from Texas, will go. 1 through 254, those are the picks. If you think he's going to go in the third round, you might want to put 85 or something like that. That would be the idea there. But yeah, you can see the format, the entry form on Steelers Depot. Just type in Steelers Mock Draft Contest. The first place winner gets $150. Second place gets $50. So just a fun activity, like to interact with the community. But again, list the 50 names that you think the Steelers will draft of that group, and whoever gets the most wins the contest.
All right, and include your name and your PayPal address, please, because you're not getting paid unless you have a PayPal account if you win this thing here. And we wanted to try to do something a little bit different this year. All right, from Kane22, I don't get it. I don't get it. If you were planning to extend Ben, why in the hell did you waste a third and fourth round draft picks taking quarterbacks? From what I'm seeing, they just spent $90 million over the next 3 years on a quarterback that led the league in interceptions. On top of that, they will have no quarterback under contract in 3 years, so they'll be drafting another one. I know you guys like Ben, but I think just guaranteed that he will not win a playoff game for the next 3 years. Wow. If I was Mason, I'd be asking to be traded somewhere that he at least gets a chance to play. The formula for winning seems pretty simple. You either get a good quarterback on a rookie deal and sign other good players, or you're the Pats. Love the show. Wish it was every day. Kane, look, I mean, it wasn't a surprise that they drafted Mason Rudolph last year. Okay, with the whole Ben and the I may or may not retire thing, I don't think they're as sold on Joshua Dobbs as most people thought. So, are you protecting yourself there? Did you really have a first round grade? Maybe you weren't convinced that you could get Ben extended at that time to a new deal, because normally they like to do the quarterback 2 years out, right, Alex?
Yep.
And they didn't. So maybe you really had some legitimate concerns if Ben was going to play past last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they just viewed Rudolph as that great talent. It's a good problem to have, is to have too many good potential quarterbacks. I get the concern, with Rudolph's contract. Rudolph's contract is up when Ben's contract is up, right? 2021.
Right. That is now the case here. But, there's nothing against trying to get, Rudolph to – let's just assume Rudolph only plays like 100 snaps during the regular season between now and – it would have to be after the end of his third year, which would be 2020, right? Okay, because you can't sign him to an extension until after his third year. Let's say he plays 200 snaps between now and then. Not enough to get him a good contract across the league, but him knowing that he's going to be the potential heir with the Steelers. You could probably sign him to one of those middle-of-the-road contracts, longer-term deals after the 2020 season, and then you go forward with him if you think he can be the guy. On the flip side, if you think he's definitely the guy at the end of the 2021 season, maybe throw the transition tag on him.
Yeah, I mean, the Pats have done this with Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, they've done it with quarterbacks before. It's a good problem to have. Like you said, you didn't know what was going to happen with Ben, his health, the retirement, stories, and you just viewed him as a first-round talent. Now, Josh Dobbs wasn't drafted to be the heir. He was drafted as a backup, and you needed a backup, so that's fine. That's a whole separate issue. I mean, I understand the concern about Rudolph, but I consider these good problems to have, and you're not going to not extend Ben just because you drafted Mason Rudolph. You're extending Ben by any means necessary.
Kane, I understand your concerns, especially when you're talking about a third-round pick that was involved there, okay? Mm-hmm. Would have, could have, should have went to a defensive player. But, they obviously had a high evaluation on Mason. And what the heck's going to happen with Ben over the next 3 years at his age? I mean, this is a guy that's had injuries too. What if he gets another concussion and says, the heck with all this?
Right.
You just don't. We're talking about 3 years out now. We're trying to project, and that's tough to do, my buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen, and maybe Rudolph becomes a really good backup, and that's awesome to have for an NFL franchise.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst case scenario? You get a guy that come in and be better than Landry Jones. You know?
Yeah.
Kane, I get it, but I wouldn't go tossing out, and to highlight Ben throwing the most interceptions last year instead of highlight his passing yards. I think it's a little strong.
And his pass attempts, he threw 670 passes last year. Of course, he led the league in picks.
All right.
His interception percentage was low, I think. So
Brett Nile, like the river, San Angelo, Texas. Hey, Dave and Alex, I'll try to keep this short, although I do tend to follow Dave down the rabbit holes. Come on. One, if the players of need are not there at 20, what are the odds the Steelers trade down like they did when they drafted Casey Hampton? B, take a player not at the primary need who fell like they did with DeCastro? Or C, draft a perceived reach like they did with Barnes? I don't think they're trading down. So, I mean, I think it'd have to be unless they thought that they could get a guy like Savage a couple picks later and pick up more draft capital, along the way. That's – I don't see him moving at all at 20, because Kevin Colbert said they're going to build a list of players that they're not going to trade away from. And I think at 20, there's going to be some players on that list that they're not going to trade away from.
I don't see him going down. They're going up. It's for Devin Bush. To the other question, if someone falls, I mean, who knows? Depends who it is.
I would think TJ or Bush are the two guys that could potentially fall. I don't know if you consider Cleveland Farrell a faller or not,
Nah, he'd be right in range. And for a reach, I mean, it depends what you think about Yasin and Savage. If you think those guys are reaches, then the answer is yes. If you don't think they're reaches, the answer to that question is probably going to be no.
If the team drops a corner in the first 2 days, what are the odds they eventually trade Artie Burns for a low-round pick in next year's draft? Nil.
Yeah, you aren't getting anything for Artie Burns.
Just because he has more worth to you, I think, than a later-round pick right now. even though you might cut him at training camp after training camp. What are the odds the team drafts a safety before they draft a corner? I think safeties have more upside. Well, if you believe that, then you like my Darnell Savage in the first round pick. Other than Savage, I don't know what safety, maybe Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, that you would draft maybe before a corner, right, Alex? I mean,
yeah, that was the name I was thinking. Maybe a Taylor Rapp from Washington, but I'm pretty sure they're drafting corner because I think corner's coming either at 20 or it's coming at 52. So I don't think, unless Savage is the pick at 20, I don't think we're seeing safety before corner. I'm not saying I agree. That's just what I think is going to happen.
So I think what are the odds the team drafts a safety before I draft a corner? Probably low, probably extremely low.
20%.
Unless it's Savage, I don't see it. If they don't trade up, what are the odds they will trade a pick in this year's draft for one in next year's draft? They normally don't go that route, right? I mean, normally if they're going to give away something, they might give away something like the third rounder next year. But I don't think they're huge on acquiring later round picks in draft weekend trades, right?
I believe you're right. And knowing you have that third round comp coming next year, you probably don't need to collect picks the way that you might do in other drafts.
Right. So I think if anything goes on with a draft pick from next year, it's the third going somewhere.
Yeah. Wait, what? Do you think 66 or 83? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if they were to trade one, if something was to happen with next year's draft picks, it would be a third going to a different team.
This year, you mean? It'd be a trade this year.
Right. There'd be a trade.
Trading next year's third for this year. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. They did that with Shamarko Thomas, right? They traded a third to move up in the fourth.
All right, we both are in agreement on that, I think. Number 5 is one of the D linemen this year's DeCastro, parentheses, Rashawn Gary is a top 5 talent. Seems to be the buzz. He will fall, and he should easily be able to beat out Alualu and Big Dan for playing time. Well, if you draft Rashawn Gary, it's probably going to be as an outside linebacker, right, Alex?
Yeah, it's a difficult fit. I know the schemes have blurred, but he's got the shoulder injury. He's 277. He didn't play on his feet. I see some stiffness with him. I wouldn't pick him. I'll put it that way.
And if you did, he's more going to the outside linebacker, right?
Yeah, I think he'd be an edge guy, kind of like Woodley. But what about, people talked to us about it, Dexter Lawrence. Could he be a surprise pick? Maybe they have a high grade on him. They don't think he's going to fall. It could be Dexter Lawrence. I think Wilkins is going to be gone, but maybe, we should at least mention Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, I guess we should mention him. I would be a bit surprised, I think.
Oh, I'd be very surprised.
Who is the one player you don't think the Steelers would draft, but you would? Jachai Polite.
You're still on the Polite train, huh?
Look, I mean, if I had been out of the country, if I had watched his tape early in the process and then went into a coma, God, I could only
get some sleep.
get some sleep. And I woke up right now and did this podcast. I would still want Jachai Polite in like the second or third round, I think. So there you go, Jachai Polite. The tape's there, right, Alex?
Yeah, the tape's there. Everything else is the problem, though.
You worry about if you got the mentality of an 8th grader and how he's going to do at the NFL level with being a professional and doing all the things necessary to be a very productive player in the National Football League.
He's a scout's dream, a coach's nightmare. That's the problem.
All right, good point. So that's my one guy, and it didn't take me just a moment to come up with that.
I don't have a great name. Deebo Samuel, I think just isn't gonna fade. He's gonna be a late first rounder, early second rounder. But man, if I could trade up for Deebo Samuel in round 2, I'd do it. I'm a huge fan of Deebo.
All right. What is the one position of need that you are most willing to see them miss out on? Even with 10 picks, it seems like they can't really address all the adequate. And don't say quarterback or O-line, or as those are in no way, shape, form a need. All right. So, what is the one position of need you're most willing to see them miss out on?
Is edge? Can we consider edge a need? I mean, not that I'm rooting for it, but if you have some trust in a Denier and you just think, we don't have a big rotation to start with, and we can kind of get through this year. I guess edge is the one where I thought maybe they don't address that position.
I would go defensive line. I would go. I would go defensive line. They better not come out of this without an edge. So, no, I'm not willing to see them miss out on an edge. I'd be okay if they didn't come out with one of those 3, 4, 5 techs or whatever.
Fair enough.
Do you think it's possible that in a couple of weeks you could get Dave T to come on and talk about the draft picks and rookie free agents? We'll see. Dave T's a lot more popular before drafts than after drafts. Not a question, but I looked at the mock drafts and I like Dave's the best. Dun, 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 dun. I think if I had a choice of Dave's final mock or whatever the Steelers will do without knowing, of course, I would take Dave's final mock right now. Cue Monte Hall. Oh, he did. He cued some music. Da, 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 da. Do you remember Let's Make a Deal? You old enough? No, you're not old enough to know Let's Make a Deal. Appreciate all the work. Thanks. Let's see here. Moving on. We got some great listeners, don't we? Get some great emails here. Let's see. I'm trying to go. Okay, Andy Cribbs. Hey, guys. Quickly want to say how grateful I am for the content you guys provide. Since discovering the podcast and the site a couple years ago, I've been becoming much informed as a fan. Thanks, Andy. Just want to say I hope that Farrell is the pick Thursday, even over Bush. Call me crazy, but this guy just shows up about in every game. Yeah, he does. I think he could contribute in the outside linebacker rotation year one, as well as spelling 97 and 91 on passing downs to keep everyone fresh. Can you imagine Watt, Hayward, Tuitt, Dupree, and Farrell on a blitz? Thanks again, guys. Look, Andy, you ain't got to twist my arm. I think late in the process here, I showed you some of the things, how I thought that turf toe injury of his affected his 2018 play as far as his 2017 play goes. I will not be surprised one bit if Farrell ends up being the guy. Now, is he the ideal perfect fit? Probably not, but the production's there, man. And you want to talk about a clean character? It's it. And boy, if he dropped about 4 or 5 pounds too, and that toe gets better, imagine maybe what you could have there, Alex.
Yeah, hey, I'd be all for it. Yeah, I'm dropping him. He's at 270 right now. I dropped him down to about 260. Bud came in, dropped weight. He'd be a really good pick. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm amazed at some people saying that this guy is not a fit or wasn't a fit throughout this pre-draft process. I don't get that. And look, does he fit just as well with a 4-3 team? Absolutely he does. This guy's going to be in high demand. That's why probably another reason to think maybe he won't fall. Mike Adiso writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, long-time reader and relatively new listener, first-time emailer. Hey, welcome to the show. Mike, be careful how you interact with me on Twitter, by the way. First off, I got to say that you guys all have done such an amazing job at the Depot. I'll push your site and podcast on all my friends and family. We appreciate that. Few questions. I'm curious why all the draft cornerback talk early in the draft. I know Hayden only has 1 year, but he's still productive, and Nelson could be solid. Well, you used the word could in there. Plus, Hilton seems like an elite nickel cornerback. I don't know if I'd go elite. He's good, but boy, it sure was curious to see Hilton get decreasing playing time late last season, right, Alex? And Mike goes on to say, what about Sutton? What about Sutton? We don't know yet a lot about Sutton. Seems like Hilton and Sutton are forgotten. Well, seems like the Steelers aren't very high on him right now at this point of the process. Where would hypothetical a new corner even play? Bump out Hilton in slot with a strong possibility that they can't get either Devin. Do you see Lee from the Jets as a smart trade option? I mean, look, if you can, I've already addressed it. If you get Devin Lee for a 6th or 7th round draft pick, and you want to play around with that and everything that goes along with it, remember this is a guy that's got some strikes against him in the substance abuse or whatever department there. I mean, he's only got 1 year left on his contract. Look, I'm kind of mad on that, to be quite honest. I'll be more surprised if it does happen, if it doesn't happen there. Thanks for taking the time to read this nonsense. That's not nonsense. I always appreciate when you guys respond to my numerous questions on Twitter, too. Can't wait for Thursday podcast and then talk. It's like Christmas Eve here. I agree. What do you think about his talks about questioning a cornerback talk?
I was surprised by it, but I think it's just more indication that they're lower on Mike Hilton than what we thought, and maybe what some Steeler fans are. Jerry Dulac in his mock draft today said, quote, the Steelers are looking for a player to challenge nickelback Mike Hilton, whose size caused other teams to pick on him last year and made him a liability in pass coverage. While we've been big Hilton fans, we understand that, and I think the idea is draft an outside corner. Steven Nelson can play the slot. He's a bigger guy at 5'10", 197. And if you have an idea of, let's just say, Rocky Sin as your left corner, Joe Hayden as your right corner, and Steven Nelson in the slot when you go sub-package, then that's probably what they're looking for ideally. So it's just they're lower on Mike Hilton than what we think they should be.
Brian Tellini writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, first time emailer to the podcast, but I've been following Steelers Depot for years. Thank you, Brian. This seems to be a very strong safety class, and want to see who your top 5 players are for a dime-back position in this draft. I personally like Mike Edwards from Kentucky isn't getting enough love. To all Depot staff, thanks for great coverage. Hey, guys do a fantastic job. Alex and all the guys, they don't get enough credit there. Brian, thanks for the kind words there. Look, Savage, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, name them off. Rap. Name them off, Alex. Best for dime-backer position in this draft.
A couple of my favorites, Monty Hooker from Iowa and Sheldrick Redwine, who had my mock draft from the U. You can throw out Kari Willis from Michigan State. Mike Edwards is a good pick as well. Malik Gant from Marshall is a late round guy. But if they don't go Darnell Savage, the guys I would really like to have, later rounds, Monty Hooker and Sheldrick Redwine.
I would agree there. I just wish a lot of these guys would have had more time to dig deeper down into some of their tape,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Brogan from Iowa. Since you talk betting and odds on the show often, if you had to bet on who the Steelers pick is tonight, who are you betting your money on? Also, Iowa just passed a sports betting bill and is waiting to be signed by the governor to become law. Things are looking up here. Perfect time to insert betting advertisement there. Look, I'm not shy about wasting as my dad used to call it. He used to say, David, he said, son, betting, when you bet, and you might as well go up and stand up on top of the roof and throw your money off the roof and not be concerned where it lands. That was my 8 or 9 year old betting advice from my father.
A critical time of year to learn about betting.
Yeah. Man, betting. Who is the favorite? Who's the chalk? Who were we betting on, Alex? I like your greedy, Alex. Talking about money. I like greedy because of the whole Kevin Colbert. So I guess if I was going to bet, I suppose I could get pretty decent odds. What, 3-1, 4-1 odds on greedy?
You're asking the wrong guy about betting odds, my friend.
I would maybe go greedy but look, I got to say this. I think greedy should be off the board by 20 personally. I really think greedy should be off the board 20 because I think all things considered, I think he's the best corner in this class.
Well,
do you?
I do. He's to be official, he's my number 1 corner. But all that smoke, when there's smoke, there's fire, and I know it's misinformation time, but everything's indicating Rocky Sin. So if I'm putting my money in, I'm not a betting man unless it's penny slots at the casino or some poker with some buddies. I don't bet, I don't gamble, but it's hard to go against Rocky Sin right now.
You're buying it then, huh?
If Dave T says it, man, I trust Dave T. You get all these NFL insiders that go into Rocky Sin. I don't have to like it to accept it, and I accept it.
If you were to have to redo your mock draft right now,
would I put Rocky Sin at 20?
Right.
Is that what you're asking? I would.
You would. Holy moly, I wouldn't.
You don't think? What is the percentage that they draft Rocky Sin? Give me a percentage on the odds that they draft Rocky Sin.
20%.
Is that the highest odds you have?
That's the highest. Player? That's the high. Because nothing with all the rules and all like that would allow me.
Okay, but I'm asking, is that the highest percentage you would put on any player? Is Greedy Williams above 20%? Or is there Devin Bush above 20%? Or Darnell Savage? Do you have that in mind? What player do you think has the best odds of becoming a Pittsburgh Steeler at pick 20? Or
like I said,
you think Greedy?
I think Greedy, Greedy. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I hope so. I hope so.
there's nothing in my bone that will allow me to. I mean, look, I get all the buzz and all this stuff about Rock. I mean, I see it. I write about it. I get it. We talked about it, how he's been hanging around that top, I don't know, what do you call it, 35 or 40 all throughout the process, but nothing in my body, based on what the Steelers have done in the past and the tape I've seen, will allow me to put him at 20. I mean, now look, if he's the guy, we're going to have to go. We're going back to the drawing board here, right?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, there's still a long amount of history. One pick doesn't ruin history, but
I
it certainly
know,
would
but it
go
just,
against
I
the
just,
trends.
there's not a body in my bone that'll let me do it.
All right, fair enough.
Boy, we're gonna have. It'd be it'd be definitely something to talk about. Should he indeed be the guy? Should we start wrapping it up here? I'm trying to see if I got maybe one more in here.
If there's one more we can do, but if
all
not,
right, Tim, let's take Colbert at his word for the one moment of ranking the top 20 guys and not needing to play in year one. And as tough as it is, ignore the first-round historical metrics. How would you rank Jawan Taylor, Andre Dillard, Greg Little, Jonah Williams, Christian Wilkins, and Dexter Lawrence? Yikes. I mean, I definitely know who the top tackles and defensive tackles are this year. But Jawan Taylor's got some nice tape at Florida.
Yeah, I like what he did against Brian Burns. I'd probably go Taylor, Wilkins, Jonah, and then pick any of the rest. It doesn't matter. I'm not crazy about Greg Little and Lawrence. I don't think fits. I mean, fits, but I don't know what you're gonna do with him exactly.
I would probably go Wilkins. A tie between Jawan Taylor and Jonah Williams from Alabama. Boy, that guy's going to be a technician, I think.
Super smart guy. Preparation's off the charts.
I think and here's the thing, Cleveland Farrell took it to him. As well. I really like Jonah Williams as a first-round tackle. And then maybe I think I'd go, I don't know, Dillard, then Greg Little. And then Dexter Lawrence, just because he's a little bit bigger guy.
Fair enough.
Reason being, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I think that's enough there. Alex, all right, folks, get to SteelersDepot.com. Get yourself entered in that draft contest ASAP. If you're listening to this, you're probably already a little bit late. Getting in by 4 p.m. Eastern time. Alex and I will be back at you bright and early Friday morning to discuss who the Steelers drafted in the first round. Look ahead a little bit to the second round. We'll try not to make that a very long podcast at all. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. If you want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit donate button upper right navigational bar. Additionally, if you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit ad-free button upper right navigational bar. Alex, once again, shout out to you and the rest of the guys. Incredible job during the pre-draft process. I am now ready to shift gears and start talking about the players the Steelers actually drafted, and we'll do that next time you and I get on the podcast machine. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.